And hey, everybody, Kevin Harned with you. Ryan Hoke is here. We are talking about tomorrow and what's headed our way in terms of severe weather and severe weather chances. But of course, today came in as a record warm day, hitting 75 degrees. Were you outside today?
Yeah. Wasn't it amazing today?
Yeah.
You know, there's always trouble when you get into the 70s in February like this. That's the only problem. As meteorologists, we know too much about that, so it's hard to enjoy it sometimes.
Well, I mean, 75 obviously was a record high, but yeah, here we are on the 15th of February. It's not supposed to be anywhere close to this. And when that happens, nature has a way of always balancing out. And unfortunately, that's going to be the case with a cold front slamming in here tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to see that moisture increase overnight tonight. It'll add to the heat energy that we have, and that is what the recipe calls for when it comes to storms and eventually some strong to severe storms.
Yeah, I see a lot of folks jumping in. I'm going to show you how this is going to work. Obviously, if you're familiar with Brian being on in the mornings and Tawana at times, we can see your comments. We'll push them up here on the screen, and we're going to answer some questions as we roll through it. We have put together some graphics here, so we're going to go through the latest data for tomorrow. But as I put some of these comments up just to show where you are, there's Sherry and Brooks. Obviously, we've got Jean coming in from Orleans, Indiana. Sandy saying, hey, it was so nice she painted a table outside today.
That sounds like fun. And just a reminder, too, if you're on our Wave Weather Now 24/7 live stream or the Wave Now stream, you may not see these comments, but we'll read them to you. You will be able to see them, however, on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook.
Tina down in Fredericksburg. I'm familiar with the Berg there. And there's Litchfield coming in from Windy. And a number of other folks from across central Kentucky. We've got Hodgenville being represented.
Oh, yeah. So we've got Kenneth there in Harrison County, Indiana. Oh, Lisa cooked out today. Totally jealous. I haven't cooked out in like 6 months.
No?
I'm so ready to.
It doesn't have to be warm to cook out, though, right?
That's the thing. And I think a lot of us were reminded of that today. Like, hey, that grill is still out there, even if it's cool outside.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's New Washington, Indiana, folks on both sides of the river. All right. Well, let's jump to it. Let us get through some of the data. Obviously, the record high today plays a role. Tomorrow is the alert day for folks that are like, well, I'm new. I don't know what this alert day means. Here's the deal. About 4 years ago, 5?
2019, January of 2019 is when we started these.
So the idea behind an alert day is to just sort of get your attention. With as noisy as the world is, we wanted to come up with a way that says, hey, over here, pay close attention. We feel like something may interrupt your plans. And we actually have a set of criteria that we go through. So it's not just like, oh, let's make this an alert day. No, we have things that have to fit. And if that's the case, then we say, pay attention. It's an alert day. Sometimes we take it away. I mean, this one was sort of prescribed over the weekend. We looked at it last week. We weren't as confident over the weekend. Boom, we raised the flag, the alert day.
And the confidence today is a little bit higher, and so much so that we were able to put some more hard times on this thing here. So you're going to see this broken down in a couple of ways. So first off, the main timing for the overall alert day, when the weather could impact your plans and your travels. It's between 4 a.m. and 6 p.m. tomorrow. But the two parts of that are very different. The first part is the morning between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. That's heavy rain and some hail potential. So this would disrupt the morning commute. I know a lot of folks have been asking today, can I go to bed tonight? Is it safe? Is there severe weather overnight? And the answer is for 99% of us, we should be fine. If you're down towards, say, Grayson County and Breckenridge County, just have your weather radio in alert mode. After midnight, a couple of storms may try to get a little close to you. Nonetheless, the second round of this timing, that 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., basically banker's hours here, which makes it a lot easier than previous severe weather events around here when folks are asleep. Everybody's going to be awake for this one.
Yeah.
Severe storm potential, and that's where we pick up sort of the highest threat for the entire day.
Yeah, really. So it's a two-part, one with the warm front early in the day, second one out ahead and along the cold front. And those the two fronts that we're dealing with. So you see the time sort of broken down. Now, it's in that second time frame that we have the greatest severe weather potential. And that's because the atmosphere will have destabilized more by then. At nighttime, we typically stabilize the atmosphere somewhat. During the day tomorrow, we suspect we're going to destabilize it. And that puts all modes or all weather hazards at play, anywhere from damaging winds, which will be at the top of the list, to minor flooding, especially in southern Kentucky, where you could see 2-3 inches of rain, and even some hail. Maybe the better chance for that actually appears in the morning round with the warm front, though, and isolated tornadoes, because the wind field, the shear is great. We are going to see rotating thunderstorms. Does that mean we're going to have tornadoes? Not necessarily. Does it mean we could have tornadoes? Yes. And that's what we'll have to be watching. But a few things have to come together for that to happen tomorrow. And I'm going to explain as we roll through some of our maps, two things that may not happen. And if they don't, then we may not have much severe weather in the afternoon at all. So let's jump into it. It's not a guarantee is what that means. We're looking at temperatures tonight that are not only warm, but well above what a typical daytime high would be. And we're at 67 degrees right now in Louisville. And while we're going to drop a little bit, we stay very mild overnight in the 50s.
Yeah, and those 50s not only are the temperature, but also the dew point will be in the 50s and rising into the 60s. Notice how green it gets in southern Kentucky on this map. By the way, the dew point is a measure of moisture in the atmosphere here. So the higher your dew point, the more moisture is in the air. That's more thunderstorm fuel here. Notice we're already getting close to 60 degrees for a dew point in Somerset. That's a pretty high amount of moisture in the air for this time of year in this part of the country. Kind of a sign of things to come. As more of that moisture comes in, we'll see more of that rain potential and eventually the severe weather part of that.
Yeah, and that's, it's not odd to see the dew points go up at night. So it's really tomorrow where we'll want to be looking to see what the dew points are. Regardless, you can see the satellite and radar tonight, clean sweep. There's nothing showing up on the radar. The satellite points out some of the cloud cover that we have across the area. I'm going to zoom this out. You don't have to go too far away to start to see some severe weather. We have the severe thunderstorm watch across parts of Texas into Oklahoma, and that's the storm system that we're watching that will be moving closer to us. So that's going to be moving to the north. The track of that low moves just north of us. That gives us the chance for severe weather during the day tomorrow. So let's break it down. And the key theme here is tracking the two fronts. First, the warm front.
And the warm front is the morning deal here. And you'll notice that the rain starts to move into southern Kentucky after 2 a.m. By 5 a.m., look at this mess. This is what you got to deal with if you're heading out for the morning commute tomorrow. Widespread heavy rain. There could be some hail and lightning contained within these storms. But these storms are what we call elevated. All right. So there's going to be a stable layer of air because of the overnight timing of these starting up that will be closer to the ground level that will protect us from some of the damaging winds from this initial round of storms. So that's 5 a.m. As we advance it forward again, you'll notice that these storms start to break a bit. So the heaviest and most widespread rain starts to move to the east after, say, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And that break is going to be when the crucial thing happens and we start to transition to round two here.
Yeah, that's because the warm front by this point in the game is to our north. So now we're on the warm side. Temperatures are warming back into the upper 60s, perhaps low 70s tomorrow. And we're going to await the cold front. We're in that warm sector. It's where the opportunity would be for the atmosphere to destabilize. That is going to happen in two ways. One, we have to have moisture drawn into the system from the front. So if we exhaust the moisture in the morning and storms develop to our south by late morning into the afternoon, that sort of shuts off the moisture supply. And that would diminish the severe threat. That's one way to diminish the severe threat. The other way is to keep it cloudy throughout the morning and into the afternoon. If we see the sun and we don't see the storms develop far to our south, then we're going to be in for stronger storms here during the afternoon hours.
And there's also a third thing that might happen tomorrow that Brian Good and myself were discussing at length earlier today. There may be so much wind energy aloft tomorrow that the storms, storms are vertical, they go from ground to the sky, that might try to tip over these updrafts or these thunderstorms to a point where they can't get very tall. So if the wind shear is so crazy high tomorrow that happens, it would be too much of a good thing, in air quotes there. So that's kind of a third, what we call failure mode there, something that could bust the potential a bit, something to keep in mind.
We're going to advance forward through the late morning hours. Here we are, mid-morning, 9:30. Notice we're seeing that break. That would be the potential to see some sunshine. We could see some of that take us into midday and early afternoon. By this point, instead of having, remember what it looked like for that 4, 5, 6 o'clock time frame in the morning? It was just a big blob of rain moving in. That's a guarantee. It's going to rain, could be heavy, messy. All right, that's the morning. In the afternoon, notice how individualized the cells are. These would be supercell storms that develop. They would likely be rotating, and should they get tall enough, strong enough, they could produce severe weather. And that's what we're going to have to watch, not only for the early afternoon, but on into the mid-afternoon hours as well. Here we are at 3 o'clock, and then pushing forward, once we get past that 5, 6 o'clock time frame, that's along the front itself. Then it pushes it out of here. And by that time, things will be diminishing. Behind the front, temperatures turn much cooler. So we've gone through two things for tomorrow. Two fronts. The warm front in the morning brings a heavy rain threat, the potential for some hail. Best chance for that's going to be in our southernmost counties. Second thing is the cold front advancing closer to us and the storms developing ahead of that front during the late morning and afternoon. Those would have the potential to be severe if we destabilize and see the moisture transport.
So that's how this goes. When it comes to timing, it's a good thing that this gets out of here pretty early in the day. So by 6, 7 o'clock, we'll be in good shape. So going to bed tomorrow night, also a fine ordeal. Now, notice this enhanced risk of severe weather. It's this brown shade here. What the Storm Prediction Center did today is they kind of turned it on its side a little bit. They kind of lopsided it over toward the east or to the right of your screen, if you will, here. They're starting to pinpoint a little bit more where they think the highest threat of the damaging winds and tornado threat would be. And notice they're kind of centering it over Kentucky a little bit more than southern Indiana. We have seen those trends in the data today. They're seeing it as well. It would not surprise me if that enhanced risk even comes down another county or two in southern Indiana, a little closer to the Ohio River tomorrow, as they try to zero in on exactly where that highest threat is going to be. Our last enhanced risk, by the way, was April 13th of 2022. So these do happen once, twice, 3 times a year around here in severe weather season, but this is February. A little bit early for that, but not unheard of.
Yeah, no. And in fact, we've had moderate and highs, many times over the course of time. So this isn't anything too outrageous, but it is early in the season. And I think that's what makes it so powerful is It's going to be a strong front. We're going from record highs today to highs into the 30s by Friday. Morning lows Saturday in the teens for some of you. All right, let's talk about some of the severe weather parameters and try to just zero in on what the model data shows. This is the storm energy, and you'll notice, what do you want to do? Replay it?
No, I just wanted to point out here that this Hardenberg-Litchfield thing here.
So again, notice the time. This is early in the morning hours, and the storm energy is just a way for us to see the available energy in the atmosphere where the storms could survive and really thrive, if you will.
And why I wanted to point out this area that we circled here is this is that very small potential from Litchfield to Hardinsburg, Grayson, and Breckenridge counties for a stronger storm overnight tonight. Notice when we advance forward in time, poof, goes away. And then we start to build back towards seeing more of this energy as the sun comes up and that big old push of rain finally gets out of here tomorrow. So look what happens after the 7:30 time frame.
And this is the destabilization that we've talked about. This becomes energy for these storms to feed off of through the late morning hours and into the afternoon. Here we are just after 12 o'clock and then rolling into the afternoon. You can see it's going to be moving to the east, and we get the greatest amount of energy, even though it would be considered weak on the scale. You notice there were some yellows and oranges in there for a period of time, and that's really off to our south and west. So some could argue that the greater severe chance is going to be south of Louisville. And I think that's probably true.
Yeah, that's what the data shows. And in a setup like this, especially this time of year, that's typically what happens. You get like a Nashville, Huntsville, down toward like Tupelo, Mississippi sort of situation. And then we are on the very northern edge of what's happening there. So this is that setup. And notice how it cuts off by 8 p.m. But even though that's a little late, the storms will probably exit before 6 p.m. There's a little bit of a gap there where the storms are out of here, but we still have a little bit of energy left.
Now, this map shows where we would have the potential for storms to rotate. This is important because the rotating storms are the larger storms. Those are the supercells. Those would be the ones that would have the greatest potential to produce hail as well as tornadoes. So when we look at that, again, looking at that same time where we would match up the data, where we saw that it was the most sort of unstable, we had the greatest amount of energy. And again, this is at 3-4 in the morning. That was over the southern and southwestern parts of our viewing area from, say, Grayson County all the way down toward Bowling Green. That's also where we have the greatest potential to see some of the rotation.
And these rotation tracks, don't take these verbatim, all right? Because every single model run has a slightly different version of this. So we're not going to say that, oh, this particular county is going to have a rotating storm at this time. Look at the trends, though. Notice where most of these tracks are. They're on the Kentucky side of the river. Notice the time. They're around 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon after a small chance in the morning. A lot of those rotating storm potentials, if you will, would be elevated in the morning. So we're not as concerned about that. But this period right here that Kevin is scrubbing through, that's our concern right there. And notice how it even goes a little green, which is a stronger area of rotation there as we head toward 5 o'clock. I'm not going to reference where that is, but I do want to at least point out that as the storms get east of I-65, that there is the chance that as you get a little closer to I-75, Lexington, could have a slight uptick in that severe weather potential. We've seen that today on several pieces of data, and this piece of data right here also kind of lends some credence to that potential.
And the reason because of that is all about the timing of the front. So should this speed up or slow down, then east or west of I-65 becomes a little different story, right? So it just depends on the timing. We sort of, when we're forecasting this, and here we are hours ahead, we're taking a snapshot of the data right now saying this is when it is for tomorrow. But as we know, even as we're talking, things are changing. So the atmosphere is always in motion. It's always changing. It's why we can never say with 100% certainty what's going to happen. It's one of the few sciences we can't do that with. But the reason is because it's always in motion. And when we try to take a snapshot of it, we pretend to stop it.
So the math may be perfect, but the problem is the observations are not. We only have weather balloons in so many places, only like 100 in the U.S., and there's so many other variables at play here. So that's why these are just really good estimations and not exact precision. As much as we try to, sometimes it's not always 100%.
Yeah, well, and sometimes it's just completely wrong. Just depends on the data that we have.
Those are our bad days.
Not because we want to be wrong, trust me. All right, when we look at the timeline, again, I think this is what's important, and I think we've really drilled down that there are going to be 2 rounds of storms. Both will present at least a chance for strong to severe weather. The most likelihood is the later front in the late morning, early to mid-afternoon time frame. And you can see that's reflected by the colors of our bars here. In the morning, there is going to be rain. That could slow you down for the morning commute. There could be some small hail. Greatest chances to our south. By midday into the afternoon, storm chances start to go back up. They'll go up even higher and perhaps even more threat of severe weather if we destabilize more. If the sun is out by 10, 11 in the morning, we could have some problems. If the storms do not form in the deep south, where, in other words, the moisture transfers into our area instead of getting stopped, we could see additional storms that would be powerful.
And we've seen both of those solutions where storms happen to our south and where they don't today on the data. So that's still kind of up in the air. And this is why we don't have a 100% storm chance in the afternoon. These cells will have some space around them. Some folks could get gapped by these supercells in the afternoon. Like, well, they said it was going to storm this afternoon. Where are the storms? Not 100%.
Probably a few miles away if you didn't get it.
Right. You'll probably
but not
hear
everywhere.
These. Everybody will probably at least hear these or see one in the distance, but you actually getting one, that's a little bit of a different story tomorrow. That separation will be critical.
And when we talk about the probability of precipitation, the pops, as you see, that takes into account several things. It's not just the percentage chance. It also takes into account the aerial chance. We forecast for a number of counties, not just your backyard. Okay, so if we were just looking at your backyard, we could give you a percentage for that. This has to go for everybody's backyard that's in our viewing area.
That's why they call this broadcasting. It's a broad area. We have 30 counties we serve, and we got to treat everybody equally here. So that's why our precipitation chances take into account all 30 of our counties here.
Let's talk about the timeline and the main threats. Again, you can see at this point and where we are in this, the enhanced risk area covers just about everybody. The exception would be our northern counties in southern Indiana, still under a risk, but it's a slight risk. Now, when we see the timing, again, the timing for the main threat of severe weather would be 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. Small supercells are expected to develop during that time. We're in the enhanced risk area. The main threat's going to be to deal with the wind. We have the damaging wind threat and isolated tornado threat, in addition to the minor flash flooding and hail potential.
Yeah, and the hail potential is going to be mostly south of our area. I'm not expecting like these giant tennis ball sized stones tomorrow. No, we'll probably see quarter size to possibly golf ball at the very highest in a few very select spots. This is not a huge deal in that regard. I think the flooding is actually something we need to pay a little bit closer attention to. There are going to be these streaks of like maybe 2 and 3 inches of rain that move through tomorrow. So turn around, don't drown.
Braden's asking that exact question, is how high is the flash flood threat with the storms? And Braden, I think the best chance is likely going to be off to our south across maybe along and south of the parkways, look like where we were going to have the highest rainfall out of this. So
somewhere just south of like a Bardstown to E-Town line. Braden, I know you're up there in
Frankfurt,
excuse me. So I don't think your risk would be as high up that way.
All right, let's go through some of the model data, and then we're going to jump to your questions. I'm just going to breeze through this because, frankly, not all of the data, well, I mean, it's overwhelming to look at, for one. And two, not every model gives us the parameters on these graphics that we've made that we even need to look at. I think this one is the best because it shows a couple of things. First of all, it shows the 2 waves of precipitation that we're seeing. You can see that based on the precip percentage, and you can also see it in the Cape, where we're looking at
bingo
1 and 2. So that is where, when we talk about Cape, that's convective available potential energy. That's the map that we showed you. That was the I forget how we had it labeled.
It's like the red and yellow map that we showed you that looked like it was on fire. That's essentially what it was the heat energy, that Cape energy.
And you can see that we do have some Cape overnight, and then it goes up even higher, much higher, for the late morning into the early afternoon. This model run only goes so far out, so you see where it stopped at this point. You'll also notice some of the wind gusts that we see on this, increasing upwards of anywhere between 30 and 35 miles an hour on this particular model.
So this kind of stops right before the main part of this event, but you see kind of the preceding conditions that sort of lead into this, the increasing Cape, the increasing moisture, the increasing gusty winds. This is the graph. The graph is an IBM. Yes, that IBM from the big computer days there. They run this model and they give it to us as a TV station exclusively here. And you'll notice it's quite detailed, has a lot of different variables. What Kevin is circling now is the feels like temperature. You see how much colder it gets as we head toward tomorrow night there. And you see it's got a couple waves of Cape, one in the morning, one in the evening as well, but not quite as high. This has not been quite as a robust model on the Cape today compared to the HRRR that we just showed you there. I know there was a question in the comments there about that, is the HRRR model kind of by itself right now in terms of how much Cape it has? And yes and no. Other models do have some Cape, but the HRRR has the highest amount, nearly 1,000 it peaks at, for those of you model nerds watching.
Are you saying there are model nerds out there?
I mean, I'm a model nerd, right? Takes one to know one, right? We all have to be.
Right. Yes. All right. And then this is the NDFD, the Weather Service. And again, a lot of stuff limited here. We're just sort of looking at the surface wind gust and the direction that those winds coming in. So we've got strong southerly winds initially. And then obviously behind the front, we go northerly and northwesterly winds that really cool us down, taking us on into the latter part of the week and the weekend. So really several a two-part system. I mean, we're looking at obviously today's record warmth, tomorrow's storms and severe potential, followed by below average temperatures to end the week.
But only for a very short time, because we're back to like February, April here. February, April. I'm trying to like merge 2 months together, and I'm not thinking of right. But it feels like April, and it probably will next week for much of the week too. There's the NAM, by the way.
And the NAM, I've just circled the wind gusts there, upwards of what, 40, is that 46
That's
miles
46 miles per hour.
So some gusts.
Like a 4-hour period there. North American mesoscale model, run out of Silver Spring, Maryland, kind of an older model, but it checks out. And you'll see that it really likes to get crazy on the wind gusts and the Cape sometimes, so it can be higher in both of those. But we don't have the Cape available in our graphic system, so that's why it shows zeros for that.
Yeah, the Cape on the maps from the NAM actually shows it very similar to what we've looked at. Through the morning, there's a slight uptick overnight, early morning, and then it really starts to ramp up later in the afternoon. And then we got to the GEM.
And the GEM is Canadian model, essentially. Don't have a whole lot of severe weather parameters there, but you can at least see that the gusts go up. This is kind of a coarse, C-O-A-R-S-E, coarse type of model there. It doesn't have a whole lot of tight grid, but you get the idea how the temperature is going to drop as we head toward, of course, our time there on Thursday night into early Friday morning.
All right, so we sort of ran through the models. They weren't super helpful. They all basically tell the same thing. A reminder, if there is severe weather and it's safe, if there's damage and it's safe, we always appreciate your photos. We say we can have the most powerful radar system in the world, but there's nothing better than the ground truth, and that's a set of eyes. And if we can have feedback on what's happening, it's super important. When you submit the images through the Wave Weather app, we get those right in front of us. We can see them, A, and B, if we can get them into the system to put them on TV, they go immediately on the air. We don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of getting permission and all that because you're submitting them through our app.
So it's a one-stop shop. You get the radar, you get the forecast, alerts, video, and of course you can submit your photos and videos. And if you take a video, take it like this, not like this. We want you to turn your phone sideways so that we can, of course, show it on TV, which is the same orientation as a horizontal phone video, just so you know.
It seems easy, but I always, when I go to take a picture, I never hold it right.
It's so convenient to just hold your phone like this. You know, you're at a concert, woo, but no, turn it over on its side. You'd be doing us a big favor.
All right, I've put up the storm timing here so folks can take a look at that. Remember, 2 rounds, severe, most intense should be coming late morning into the early to mid-afternoon, and then after 6 o'clock, we're done. So now let's go to some of your questions. Right?
We've had a whole mess of questions come up here.
I'm going to scroll back up so we can try to just roll through them. So bear with us. Tell me when I get to the top.
We're getting pretty close.
To there.
Yeah, let's just go ahead. Yep, there's the cooking out. So we start there.
All right, so let's take Ashley's here.
Okay, so tomorrow afternoon is the highest chance for the severe weather threat. Bingo, you got it right. So that's exactly what's going to happen.
Not to dismiss the morning rain, which can cause problems, and not to say that there won't be a rogue warning tomorrow morning. It could happen, but the greater chance is late morning into the early to mid-afternoon. All right, very good.
Let's see.
Jamie says, this makes me wonder how our spring will be.
I know, because like we already started spring, it feels like. It's sort of weird. Like
everybody's given up on winter. It's like, it's over.
If you watch our 24/7 live channel, Wave Weather Now, by the way, our streaming weather channel, I took out the snowflake part of the video that runs every 10 minutes on it to show the logo, because I was like, when are we going to see snow for a while? So
right.
Even us around here, we're kind of in spring mode.
I've just been putting up some hellos from Valley Station. There's Steve Leanhart saying hello. And Linda coming in with, even with overcast skies, we pushed to a record high today.
It's all about the wind, right?
And you know one thing we didn't mention?
The smoke.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that was kind of wild.
Yeah. So what happened today is we started getting phone calls, emails, messages, etc., about this hazy sky that you probably saw. Like, what on earth? Why is all this haze around? It almost looks like fog. It's filtering the sunlight, making it look weird. Got on the radar and just started looking for smoke plumes because I was like, man, with this lower air quality we've got, surely there's a fire somewhere. And sure enough, was able to find a smoke plume via radar in Central City, Kentucky. Called to the fire department down there in Central City, and they said, oh, very astute of you to see that, because we are having controlled burns right now at the National Guard training facility out there in Central City, Kentucky. And that smoke plume was so big and was oriented just perfectly to hit Louisville and all along the Ohio River. We had calls as far away as Carrollton saying, oh my gosh, why does it look so milky white in the sky today? So it was all that smoke from Central City, Kentucky.
One of the guys from our commercial services came in. I was sitting in the weather office, and he was like, what's all the haze? And I'm like, well, we got some high, thin clouds. He's like, yeah, but this is on the buildings, and it's as low as the, Floyd's Knobs. He was like, it's and it was like it was smoky. Yeah. And sure enough, I looked outside. I'm like, wow, that does kind of look like smoke. And we started looking around. There were no fires near here. Obviously, when the radar showed that blip, it was like, oh, well, maybe that's a clue. But you never expected it to be that far away.
Right.
But because of those strong southwest winds, it just plumed it right in here.
And I was looking at what we call atmospheric soundings today, too, and found an inversion at about 7,000 feet above the ground here. So that smoke was literally hitting like a ceiling and having to come back down again in those winds. So that's why it traveled all the way up here, and it didn't just go straight up.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
All right. Let's jump back in. Amanda is here saying hello from Marysville, Indiana. Hoping we don't get hit bad. The anxiety already has me thinking about it tomorrow. And of course, if you remember from all the Henryville, Marysville, Borden back in 2012, and that was in sort of the winter months, late February into March, early March. That was, we had several rounds of severe weather through that time. Yeah. And then, of course, the March storm that went through there. So no doubt anxiety would be high. This doesn't look anything like that, by the way. No. But we can't rule out the fact that there will be some severe weather and the possibility of some tornadoes.
Right.
There's Alexandra from Jeffersonville saying hello. Let's see if we can scroll down. Any questions you see? Tell me. A lot of hellos. I'm going to try to get
Ashley, let's answer that. I was actually wanting to get to that when I saw it clip by earlier. She's asking if the tornadoes would be brief if they were to develop. So many questions. My anxiety peaks around this. Look, we get that. Tomorrow's tornado threat, if one were to happen or two, it would be a situation where they wouldn't last super long. This would not be like a super long track tornado day up here. And part of the reason for that is we've got a whole lot of speed shear in the atmosphere, which is basically faster winds as you go aloft, but not a whole ton of directional shear tomorrow. So these little whirly gigs would not last very long without those surface winds being out of the south or southeast. They're more out of the southwest tomorrow. So that kind of argues against that long track tornado potential. So that's a good thing. All right. That's a little silver lining of the forecast here. Probably not a long track tornado day here, at least. Now to our south, that could be a different story.
Right. Let's see. Amber says, I hate not having a basement. Obviously, the lower you can get, the better off you're going to be if we wind up having a tornado warning. Bears having ways to get warnings tomorrow. If you have the Wave Weather app, download it. If you don't, you can customize those alerts. I've been it's funny because I've had a lot of charity events over the last few weekends. They're like, you are with me every morning. I go to bed with you. You wake me up every day at 6 o'clock. So sometimes because my voice comes on there. But if you don't want the voice, you can change it to a sound. You can make it silent. All of that's in the app. It's fully customizable. And I think some people don't know that. So that's why I mentioned it.
And we created a little video too. So if you go to the Wave Weather app, I put it up there through tomorrow evening. Just scroll through the videos at the top and you'll see how to customize your alerts so you can walk through how to do that.
All right. What's Tiffany asking here?
Well, the daytime, slow the rain. All right. Not quite sure.
Yeah, we'll just say that during the day, it is during the day we're watching the storms. The greatest threat, rain in the morning, a little bit of a lull, better chance for scattered storms that could be severe late morning into the afternoon. All right.
Let's see what else we got here.
Craig being optimistic. All right, I'm just going to put it up there.
It's basketball season.
We'll start the sports war right here on the Weather Channel. If UK wins tonight, we have good weather tomorrow. Well, you'll feel better tomorrow if you're a UK fan, I suppose.
Nothing says Kentucky like a UK basketball comment in a weather stream like this.
Morgan asking what caused the high temperatures to be so warm today, and that's a couple of prong thing. First of all, we had extreme southerly winds, which helped to warm us up. That was the first thing. We had plenty of sunshine early in the day. That's another thing. But we're under sort of this ridge for now.
Right. And another thing that helped out today was the dry air, too. That moisture hasn't arrived yet.
Right.
Dry air heats and cools very efficiently. So the sun hit that dry air and woo, temperature went nuts today.
Now, that won't be quite as effective tomorrow because we're pumping in a lot more moisture coming in, and consequently, highs won't be in the mid-70s. We could still hit around 70 for a high, but a lot of that's wind-driven, bringing in the warmer temperatures behind that warm front.
What we call advection in weather nerd land here.
Yes. All right, let's see. Chris is asking about the HER, the HRRR model.
We talked about this a little earlier, actually referenced his exact question here. The helicity is extremely high tomorrow, we'll say that. But we are missing some of the CAPE component that we would typically have in April or May around here. So this isn't the same level as something like that. So the HRRR, as we mentioned earlier, kind of the highest of the bunch. The NAM had something that's sort of a runner-up in that, and everything else was a little bit lower on that CAPE there for you weather nerds out there.
All right, there's Sean saying, welcome to Kentucky, where the seasons don't matter and the weather does what it wants.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, very much
Yes.
true. I think that's in most places nowadays, though. I mean, you look at some of the snow totals from the Northeast, it's like, man, they haven't had any snow.
Except for Buffalo, literally like the only place that's overachieved because that's lake effect. That's like a different driver.
It's just wild.
Yeah.
Speaking of snow,
Yes.
Donna's saying, hey, her son's out in Colorado Springs, and they're getting hammered with snow right now, 5 degrees. For tonight.
I was looking at our 24-hour weather stream earlier and it has the airport delays. And I saw that Denver was like 170 plus minute delays there. Those folks getting hammered. The snow is just coming down in Colorado.
And we haven't had any. Now we're below average by like 4 inches.
Yep. Boy.
All right. Connie is saying, is Marion County getting any severe weather? Tough to pinpoint exactly where. We can just say in the general area, meaning the counties that we serve, there's going to be a chance tomorrow. So I think some places will have severe weather tomorrow.
And I will say Marion County on the Kentucky side of the river here would be in a slightly higher risk area than folks say in like Seymour or North Vernon, where you'd be a little bit away from, I think, more of that supercell tornado risk up there.
Yeah. Bryce is asking, do you think this will go up to a 4 out of 5 chance? And what Bryce is referring to, I'm going to try to punch it up here.
It's the Storm Prediction Center outlook. So when we say 3 out of 5, that's where we're at now for tomorrow.
Scale across the top. So the Storm Prediction Center, we're either in a marginal, a slight, and an enhanced, which is where we are, or moderate to high. And at this point, I don't see us going any higher than where we are in the enhanced risk area. This gets broken down into subsections based on hail, based on tornado, based on damaging winds as well. And I can put those up. Let me do that.
Yeah, just go to a data set there. And but yeah, here's the thing. There's so many iffy parts of this tomorrow, so much uncertainty on the exactness of the evolution of this. And let's see.
Changing because these are all day one.
These right here, SPC2 there.
There we go.
Okay, so like that's just what we showed you earlier, but just kind of on a different graphic here. And then we'll be able to show you the tornado part of that broken down. You'll see it's a 5% risk, which is kind of the second of that, but it's not crazy, right? I mean, this is not a 10 or a 30 day.
What we'd be looking for, in other words, to answer Bryce's question is, will we move up to that moderate category? What we need to see probably in the day 2 data, which is this, would be a little bit higher of a zone somewhere, both in tornado and in wind. And right now,
it's basically being driven by wind,
yeah,
right? If that makes any sense.
And there you see the wind potential for tomorrow, 58 plus miles per hour. That takes us into the severe category, and that includes pretty much the enhanced risk area.
Right. So we'd have to see that wind potential come up a little bit. The hail potential, I believe that's for tonight, actually.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. There's tomorrow. baseline. It's kind of the lowest you can get on that. So it's there, but again, we were talking about like quarter golf ball. I don't think we'll go over that. And of course, those will be very isolated reports because these are isolated supercells we would see tomorrow.
All right. So I think to answer it, will we go moderate? I don't think so.
Probably not. South of here, they could. That's something.
Oh yeah, I think some areas in the south, and it's not out of the question here. I just feel like that the enhanced risk area covers us pretty good, unless we just totally destabilize. I mean, if it looks like we're going to wind up breaking out in full sun for a period of time, and there's nothing stopping the moisture transport, then okay, maybe I could see it. But I really think that we will see some limitations.
Midday update tomorrow is when they would do that, most likely.
All right. Ashley's asking a lengthy question here about Rhineyville. A little concerned about the kiddo being at school with this type of weather. What will be on the horizon and keeping the pets safe too? All right. Well, good question about the schools. They are all prepared for severe weather. It's not going to happen everywhere. I'm not a parent, so I have a hard time knowing how you would feel. I just know that the severe weather, if it happens, isn't going to happen everywhere, and the odds of it happening at a particular location like a school would be very low. If it does, they still have plans.
A school is a safe place to be during a severe weather event because there's training, there are plans in place. The superintendents speak with the National Weather Service, so they're informed. They know what's going on there. So that's something that at least should help us sleep a little bit more at night tonight. That's good.
Shonda is asking about our Cape map. So let me pop it up. And she wants to know, is the red hotter or is the yellow? And it's really the red. So I'm going to put it into motion here, and you can see that the red is the weaker part. So as you get into the yellows and the whites, that's a strengthening area of energy, and that would translate to stronger potential.
You can always see those legends that we put on our banners there in graphics like this. It says weak to strong up there. So it gives you an indication of what you're looking at, because I know there's so many different colors we put on your plate, but we at least try to define those as best we can so that it makes a little bit more sense.
And again, you can't really take those graphics right now with, it's sort of the trends that we watch this far in advance. It's not worth being like, oh, where am I? Oh, there I am under that one. It's going to be at 9:04 tomorrow. No.
Yeah.
All right.
This is more of an explanation tool rather than a planning tool when it comes to that kind of stuff. All right. We'll show you a little bit more here than we do on TV for obvious reasons.
All right. Valerie is asking, again, I think a question. My son will be at school. Does he need to stay home because of the weather? I live in Louisville. Do we really need to worry about tornadoes? I'm going to answer this question in a couple of ways. First of all, the first part is, does he need to stay home? I don't think so. I think we deal with a lot of weather when kids are at school. I think Ryan pointed out that schools are safe. We have severe weather plans. Do we really need to worry about tornadoes? I think it's always wise to worry about tornadoes. We have to have a plan. We have to know what to do and where to go because they inevitably happen. The odds of them happening to one particular place or location are very, very low. Could it happen tomorrow? It could. We have several of the ingredients just strong enough to where we say, you know what? We need to pay close attention tomorrow. Does that mean it's going to happen? No, but it means it could happen.
And that's why you have to be prepared, not scared, as they say. To answer Sean's question here, you're probably referencing one of two things here. And those two things are either the National Weather Service call earlier today or some discussion that Brian Good had on TV. You're asking, didn't it seem like too much rotation? Didn't seem like too much rotation potential, which is good. Do you think there's a realistic cause for worry about tornadoes in Bardstown? We were talking about a little earlier today how there's a lack of directional shear in the atmosphere. So the winds being at different directions at different heights here. And there's more of a speed shear scenario where the winds are out of the same direction, but they're just increasing with height here. And that argues against a more enhanced tornado potential. So you're right in gleaning that information from either us or the National Weather Service today. However, with that in mind, you can still get tornadoes without a whole lot of directional shear. The good news is, as I mentioned earlier, they won't be like these long-lived monstrous those things. No, not at all. They'll probably be pretty short-lived and somewhat weak in a scenario when you don't have a whole lot of directional shear. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and the idea is, you could imagine, I mean, the sort of visual concept is, as we go up in height, we have different wind speeds. Fast wind speeds, slower wind speeds, but they're still going. What would happen is that starts to turn like a barrel roll. And as the atmosphere starts to roll, what we need is an updraft to sort of kick it up. That comes with the front moving in. The front comes in. Now we have two columns that are spinning, and the obvious one would be the tornado that could possibly touch down. That's typically, if you're trying to visualize what happens with speed and directional shear, we're trying to get the atmosphere to rotate and to sort of be like a barrel that's rolling that you're pushing. You've got to push it up. That comes with an updraft. That comes with a powerful thunderstorm or a front. You get it going. You get the counterclockwise rotation. The tornado, typically the one that's rotating clockwise, just sort of fades out.
So a lot of things have to happen at the right time for that to happen. It's like baking a cake. You have to have just the right ingredients, and if you don't, it doesn't turn out. And that's why there is still some bust potential tomorrow. We may not have all the ingredients at the exact same time. We'll see what happens, though.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Farm Machinery Show, someone's mentioning
yes.
that. That's a big crowd in town. We'll be here to keep everybody updated.
They have a severe weather plan at the fairgrounds, by the way, so they'll be in good shape.
Nancy's aspiring to be a model nerd. I love that.
Weather model.
Join the crowd. You can be a part of our team, Nancy. We've got a lot of model nerds over here. Let's see.
A lot of questions about schools tomorrow, and that's something we haven't dealt with a lot lately because a lot of our severe weather events have been during the overnights. This one's different. This is during business hours and school hours tomorrow. So a lot of folks are going to be out and about and just need to have that wave weather app. And of course, those school superintendents will be paying very close attention as well.
Tyler's asking if there's an upgrade to enhanced. We're already in the enhanced, so that's already here.
It'd be the moderate. That's
it would
the
be
next
the moderate would be the next step.
Kind of iffy on that. Probably not happening at this point, but we'll see what happens. I think the midday update tomorrow is when they would make a change if they needed to, because we'll be right up on this thing.
Yeah, and that's by that point we'll know how much instability we actually have to worry about.
Right.
So I'm just looking for some of our final questions here. Tammy is talking about in a mobile home, going to the dad's house with the son and dog to be safe.
Good. Yes.
I think that's wise.
Yes.
I mean, if there's a watch that comes out, the process goes like this. We try to let you know as far in advance as we can, which is why over the weekend you saw Jessica say, hey, we're going to put the alert day on Thursday. People could start planning. Hey, I need to pay attention to Thursday. I'll keep checking in. Let's see what they're saying about Thursday. And then we get to the day in advance where the Storm Prediction Center is talking about it. Now we're in an enhanced area. Now it's like, all right, we're still worried about Thursday. We're still watching Thursday. Tomorrow, the natural progression would be that the Weather Service would jump in with the Storm Prediction Center. Hopefully a watch would be issued next, and then perhaps a warning. That would be the progression to say, hey, we alerted you first by looking way in advance, saying Thursday was the day. The Storm Prediction Center kept giving their updates as we got closer, saying, hey, Thursday's the day. The watch would come out. So as you're making and going throughout your day, you could say, I got to pay close attention. I need to make sure I'm checking frequently what's happening. And then boom, when the warning comes out, and you're prepared. So a lot of questions of, do you really think there's going to be a tornado? We can't say there's going to be a tornado at a particular place. All we can say is that the atmosphere and the dynamics of the atmosphere will be prone to that potential tomorrow. It's not the highest, but it's not the lowest.
And to your point there about I live in a mobile home and I will be going to my dad's house. That's fantastic. If you live in a mobile home, you absolutely have to have a NOAA weather radio and be up on the weather. And if a tornado warning is issued for your location, you cannot be in that mobile home. You've got to find a different shelter, a basement or a first floor in a house nearby with a foundation. Mobile homes, unfortunately, are notoriously dangerous places to be during a tornado. So keep that in mind. I know that doesn't assuage any sort of anxiety for folks living in mobile homes, but that is the state of affairs that we're in here in 2023 with mobile homes and tornadoes. So we have to make sure that we're paying attention.
Braden says he's going to be watching Wave Weather Now. That'll be on with our alert day coverage. That's a little bit different than what you typically see if you're watching Wave Weather Now. That's our streaming 24/7 weather channel. at midnight tonight or just before, you'll notice that it has far more frequent radar updates. The warnings will be there. You'll see those at the bottom of the screen if they're issued.
Exactly. So it's kind of a high frequency, like you can always see what's going on that weather stream, that 24/7 Wave Weather Now stream when an alert day is issued. You'll see things turn red. It just kind of gives you an enhanced level of service when we get into that situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I keep scrolling through. I'll just pop it up because Brandy's asking the same thing, talking about the kids at school tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, I just find that interesting. I think that, and I guess it's because back when I went to school, it was like,
Right.
get on the bus, kid.
There have been some high profile, just to add some context to this, in the
Sure.
last 15 years, some high profile events involving schools and tornadoes. You know, Alabama comes to mind, you know, from 2011.
We don't have to go outside of our viewing area. I mean, we had Henryville, which was
Exactly.
a pretty nerve-wracking event.
All of these things happened in the last, 15 years or so. So it's kind of at top of mind here, trying to make sure that kids in schools are safe. And a whole lot has changed.
Well, I think
since,
another part is what's going on in our schools these days isn't just about the weather that keeps them safe. A lot of other things where it feels unsafe to be at school.
Sure.
So the last thing the kid wants to worry about, I'm sure, is, oh my gosh, I've got to deal with the weather.
Yeah.
So,
And there are safe places. There are drills. I mean, they train for this stuff. So, I think in this case, your school superintendent, your school principal, even down to the teachers, they're going to know what to do in this situation
yeah,
tomorrow.
I'm afraid I don't have advice for
Right.
kids. You'll have to do what's comfortable for you
That's true.
in that.
That's our job as parents,
I can only give you the data and sort of analyze how I think the weather is going to go tomorrow. Your comfortability with that is like saying, well, should I drive to work on a day where we have light snow showers? I don't know. That depends on a lot of factors.
And two, it's tougher when you are in a situation like this and not everything is 100%, right? So there is still some bust potential tomorrow. This still may not even produce severe weather tomorrow if something goes wrong, which there's a pretty decent chance of that happening. So we also don't want folks to be being so overly cautious and stimulated by all of this that it's not the right thing, right? So we want to make sure everybody's expectations are in the proper place here.
All right, let's see. We're going to have to wrap it up. We're coming up just after 9 o'clock. And let's see. Some folks talking about Henryville.
Right.
Again, I don't think there's anything like Henryville.
It's not in the same universe. Henryville, that severe weather setup was just incredible on all the metrics and everything heading into it. Everything was maxed out. This is nowhere near that. This doesn't raise our eyebrows to that level, not even close.
We've got a lot of people watching. Destiny is in E-Town. I saw Hodgenville in there a couple of times. We appreciate everybody jumping in and saying hello. Down in Hodgenville for specific locations like Linda and the number of folks are asking about. Again, it's too early for that. It's everywhere in our viewing area that has the potential. You're just going to have to pay close attention tomorrow. That's the bottom line. You're just going to have to be weather aware on Thursday. The first round moves in the morning. The lesser severe threat is with that round, but it's not zero. The better threat of severe weather, though the storms will be more scattered or isolated, will be from the late morning into the mid-afternoon. So if those storms develop, they deserve to be watched, and we'll be watching them. So all you have to do is watch us. It's that straightforward.
Right. And there's a number of ways that you can watch us now. We've got Wave Weather Now and Wave Now on your phone, on your Wave Now app, on your smart connected TV, and of course for tablets and our website, as well as traditional television as well. So you can have us everywhere. And if your power goes out, the Wave Weather app has that live stream on there too. Just click Watch Now. Real easy, so that if you're happening to be in the basement, you can't hear the TV, you can have it in the palm of your hand.
We're going to have to say goodbye. We appreciate everybody jumping on. We'll likely be back on in the morning. Brian will be here probably in that 9 o'clock hour at some point. Tawana's going to be here in the morning too. So tune in to Sunrise. If you're up late tonight, tune in at 11 o'clock. We'll have new data by then. So we'll have that for you. And then we'll be here keeping an eye, both online and on TV tomorrow. Make sure you have the Wave Weather app. Get it customized how you want to receive the alerts, get the tones the way you want them. And that's going to be a good sort of trial run as we go into the spring season. Severe weather season is almost here, so it's always good to be prepared.
Let's hope it's just a dress rehearsal, right? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, that
Get
would
through
be
tomorrow
nice.
without any major problems.
All right. Good night. I'll see you back here on Wave News at 11 o'clock.